Andrés Quero Sanchez is extraordinary professor of philosophy at the philosophy department of the University of Regensburg. He's also director of the philosophy section of the Andújar's International Institute for German Culture in Andújar, Spain. He's written many things, and he asked to single out one very recent publication from Brill in 2022 that he is the editor of, called Mystik und Idealismus, eine Lichtung des Deutschen Waldes. And so just with those brief words, I'll turn it over. And the name of his talk today is Love is Only Where Different Things, Being Free and Capable of an Independent Existence, Feel Attracted to Each Other. Meister Eckhart and Schelling on the Bounds of Love.
Thank you for introducing me. In a passage in Schelling's The Ages of the World, he states, which is the title of my paper today. Let me quote it now. I quote, "For it is not a miracle when different things hold together as an effect of a force compelling them to this." Now, this is even not the case with love, because in this case, we speak of things which are able to exist independently from each other, of things which, precisely as free things, feel attracted to each other, unquote. This is by no means an occasional passage in Schelling's writing, but we find some other similar ones in his Stuttgart private lectures of 1810, as well as in his philosophical investigations into the essence of human freedom, so-called Freiheitsschrift, published in 1809. Let me quote another passage taken from this latter one. I quote again. "For we find love," Schelling is always speaking of real love, "we find real love not in the indifference nor in a conjunction of those things that could not exist without such a conjunction, but the secret of love, that is the mystery or even the miracle of love, consists in that it brings together things that are each other free and capable of an independent existence and yet feel attracted to each other," unquote. According to these passages, real love is not based on any previous needs, compelling or even forcing things or forcing people to unite. Real love cannot be just the result of a previous need. Real love establishes, sure enough, a certain kind of a need, a certain kind of necessity, therefore. Yet, since this is not just a result of a previous need, it means nothing but the necessity of freedom itself. There is no bonding element there, no bonding material, no bonding mechanism, but just freedom itself, bringing a connection in a secret, mysterious, or miraculous manner. Even the decision of a person, and generally speaking, the decision, in quotation marks, of a thing to limit, to restrict, to confine, or to bound itself, to bound himself, to bound herself, to establish a particular unity, cannot be, if we're speaking of real love, a forced decision, but it must be a free one. It can only be a decision made, again, in quotation marks, by the thing itself, a decision coming from the inner essence of the thing, which Schelling, as it is well known, calls the nature of the thing. Meaning a secret, mysterious, miraculous connection between things, love is the fundamental principle of nature, as Schelling's philosophy of nature conceives it. Because modern science was defending mechanistic causation as the fundamental principle to explain allegedly natural events, it was, Schelling says, eliminating the only real principle of natural relationship, which cannot be other than love. For love is the only principle founding an inner or essential, even a natural relationship between different things, which cannot be explained by referring to the influence of merely external forces. An external force can nothing but force things to do something they would not otherwise willingly do. A reaction of a thing to an external force compelling it is a mechanistic, explainable reaction, which, as such, Schelling says, even is not a natural reaction. And there are anyway no natural reactions at all, but only natural actions. Again, no reactions to any compelling external forces, but only actions of things originating from their own inner nature. By defining love as a magical power, Schelling uses a characteristic expressions of Jacob Böhme and the so-called theosophic tradition, which he knew very well. His reading of Böhme is traceable to the autumn of the year 1799. At that time, he used to meet some other important authors in Jena, such as Friedrich Schlegel, Novalis, and Fichte, in the home of August Wilhelm and Caroline Schlegel to discuss about Böhme, with Ludwig Tieck acting as a mediator who had rediscovered Böhme's writings only a short time before by coincidence at an antiquarian bookshop in Berlin. From Böhme, Schelling also takes his distinction between to master something and to kindly or gently win someone or even something over. In German, this is his distinction between bewältigen and sanft überreden. The concept sanft, that is to say gentle, mild, kind, is the one Böhme uses to define the principle of love as opposed to the principle of egoism, this latter characterized by the concept of wrath. In German, der Grimm or der Zorn. Those who are not capable of real love, but only of egoistic acts, can only master or overcome something or someone in a grimly or in a furious manner. This is in German bewältigen in the sense of beherrschen. In contrast, those who are capable of acting guided by love do not have to master anything, since they can gently win it with him or her over. I quote again. This is, Schelling says, the old not repressible opposition between, on the one hand, a negating will, which just keeps to itself, and on the other hand, an asserting will, which tends to spread out. The former, that is to say, the negating will, cannot be mastered by the latter, that is to say, by the asserting will, but it can only be gently and kindly won over, only giving way to the influence of love. Unquote. The thesis I'm defending is that Schelling's conception of nature, which is defined or even constituted by the principle of love, correspond with Meister Eckhart's concept of why-lessness, in German, Warum-Losigkeit, why-lessness. Of course, I'm not stating by this that Schelling was just copying Eckhart's why-lessness principle and just comparing both positions and finding out which I think are remarkable affinities between them. Now, it is not just a theoretical construction which I'm attempting to convey, but it clearly also has a historical philological basis. For there is no doubt that Schelling did read the so-called Basel Tauler print of 1521. This is the print published in Basel, in Switzerland, in this year containing lots of German sermons by Tauler, Johannes Tauler, which was reprinted a year later in 1522, which contains no less than 52 German sermons, not by Tauler, but also by Meister Eckhart, who is explicitly mentioned by the unknown editor of the book in his introduction to the second part of it. Some important passages in Schelling's Ages of the Word and the so-called Erlangen lectures clearly presuppose a knowledge of some German sermons of Eckhart, particularly, not only, no, a knowledge of the so-called Sermon on Poverty. This is sermon number 52 in the canonical edition of Joseph Quint, which is actually, by the way, not a sermon, but a speech. In Latin, they say a collatio. In German, Eckhart himself called it a Rede, a speech. These passages were demonstrably written by Schelling about 1810, 1811. That is to say, directly after his Freiheitsschrift and his Stuttgart private lecture. Now, there are some other passages in writings published by Schelling at a much earlier time, particularly some passages in his treatise on the self of the principle of philosophy of 1794 and in the philosophical letters of 1795, 1796. In these passages, Schelling uses both the concept Grundlos, in English, for no reason or gratuitous, and the concept unmittelbar, in English, unmediated. So he did it with the same meaning we find in some German sermons by Eckhart. So I think we have to admit that Schelling, at that time, knew the Tauler edition by the pietist Philipp Jakob Spener, which he occasionally mentions, containing some important sermons by Eckhart, 12 actually, without mentioning him by name, though. This edition by Spener also contains the pseudo-Taulerian Book of Spiritual Poverty, which Schelling highly valued, in which both these concepts, I mean, Grundlos and unmittelbar, play an essential role. And I'm sure that all these texts were crucial for the development of Schelling's philosophy, even from a very early stage of his career, so from 190 something like this. Now, which position do we find in Meister Eckhart with regard to love? In his Latin works, he explicitly distinguishes between amor and caritas. Both concepts are translated into English as love. Caritas means a non-egoistic motivated love for someone or even for something. Amor, in contrast, defines a feeling of someone who wants to get something, again, something, in order to have or even to possess it. The object of amor, as of an egoistic motivated kind of love, is always a thing, or at least a person treated as if he or she were a mere thing. Amor, that is the egoistic motivated kind of love, is as such, Meister Eckhart says, related to the will. In contrast, caritas, that is the non-egoistic motivated kind of love, has but nothing to do with the will. Those who love in the sense of caritas do not want anything at all. They do not want to have or possess anything at all. Yet they do not even know of anything at all. Caritas is therefore characteristic of the poor person in the sense Eckhart defines him in the aforementioned Rede von der Armut, German sermon 52. I quote, "That is a poor person who wants nothing and knows nothing and has nothing," unquote. Caritas does not want anything, That is to say, it does want no thing, even nothing. It considers a thing even as being no thing. That is, it does not consider it as a mere thing. The object of caritas is not a thing, not a being just existing in relationship to anything else, ultimately in relationship to the egoistic interest of the allegedly loving person. The object of caritas is not just getting value through its relationship to anything else, but it has a value on its own. It is, therefore, in and by itself. This kind of love, caritas, is even God himself. Eckhart says, by quoting the first epistle of John, chapter 4, verse 8, God is love. Deus caritas est, Theos agape esteem. In this sense, the object of love, which is no thing, is not the object of the will, Eckhart says, but only the object of reason. Of course, in the sense of reason, which is characteristic of Eckhart, the will wants to possess a thing. Reason, on the contrary, does not want to have anything at all, but it just wants to let beings exist as they themselves are in and by themselves. Conceptual knowledge of the world, that is the awareness that reason has of the world, does not let us know of anything. Only the will, not reason, let us know of things. Conceptual knowledge of the world consists, therefore, in letting the world be as it is in itself. This alone constitutes the real knowledge, not the awareness of mere things, but the knowledge of no thing as of those things which, being nothing, are really. Here's the place of Eckhart's conception of Gelassen, a term which is not possible to translate into English in a perfect manner. Think, a person is Gelassen when he does not exist depending on things he wants to have or possess. Such a person lets things, being nothing, be as they are, not in relationship to him, but as they are in themselves or in an absolute manner. You can also say of an object that it is gelassen worden, if it is not considered as something just to be possessed, that is, not as something merely available, nor as a mere instrument to achieve something different from it itself. When we, therefore, love an object, which according to Eckhart means the same as when we see an object in God, or when we consider it according to reason, or in the concept, or when we let it be as it is in itself, then we are not forcing it, but we are just accepting it, accepting him, accepting her as a free being. On the other hand, when we really love an object or even a person, then there is nothing at all forcing us to feel attracted to this object, this person. It attracts us, Eckhart said, in a gentle manner. It is, he writes, gentle, in Latin, suave. Even insofar as it attracts us because and only because of its own power, in Latin, sua vi. So he writes, suave est quod sua vi nos trahit. Real love concerns, therefore, a magical power existing beyond any kind of just mechanistic, explainable reactions, just without a way. Or in German, Sunderbarunde. This is not the characteristic power of things, but the power characteristic of knowing, which is, according to Eckhart, as well as according to Schelling, the power of God. And this is my conclusion. Love knows no bounds. It knows no border. Well, according to both Meister Eckhart and Schelling last one. The bounds of love, surely they are not mere facts, not at all. No factual situation, no state of affairs can limit the power, the gentle, magical power of love. Because love, I mean real love, does not know of affairs at all. Those who really love do not back away from anything, but they do it. I mean, they actually back away from nothing. That is to say, they have to respect what they really love, the beloved object as it is by itself, by himself, by herself. They have to let it be as it is. They have to respect what they love as being even nothing. That is not just an available thing.